Today we'll talk about 5 ways to quickly improve employee engagement. And of course, we'll talk a lot about employee engagement itself, how to work with it, how to measure it, and how to improve it. And that's our plan for today. In the first block, we'll discuss what employee engagement is, what is the problem with employee engagement, how to measure the employee engagement, and respectively, the promoted theme of this webinar, 5 ways to quickly improve employee engagement. Number 2, I will share a short announcement about an event that we're going to do in Lisbon, Portugal this November. And this event is also related to the topic of employee engagement, and it will be interesting for CEOs and HR professionals. Finally, we will have some time to review the challenges that you mentioned when you sign up for this webinar, and we'll talk about the biggest mistakes about employee engagement. Finally, if we'll have time, we will have, I think, like 5-10 minutes for questions and answers. But you can ask your questions during the webinar as well. You can use for this the comment box of the YouTube live stream, or you can use the comment box on bcdesigner.com or on a web page that is called BC Designer on Air, where I assume you are watching this event right now. So that's our plan for today. Let's start. So high employee engagement is good, low employee engagement is bad. Why? What is the problem with low employee engagement? So we can talk a lot about this, but I do recommend for you to check out the studies done by Gallup. They do these studies regularly, and one of these studies, quite old, but they're still valid, confirmed that only 13% of employees are engaged in their job. What happens with the rest? They are less engaged, less efficient and effective, and that's a problem. And when talking about employee engagement, what do we mean? Let's get to the Gallup Q12 report, which basically summarized 12 questions, 12 statements related to employee engagement. So I'm putting here just a few of them. For example, I know what is expected of me at work. Or at work, my opinion seems to count. Or I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. Or the mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. So you can find 6 more statements from the Gallup studies, and on our webpage, BC Designer on Air. If you scroll down, you'll find the links to this very Gallup Q12 studies, and to some other useful links that I will mention during this webinar. So that's what employee engagement is. And I think you saw it on one of the slides that we were using to promote this webinar, that for many people, employee engagement is something that is here in the part of the employees. So employees are broken, they are not engaged, and that's how many business professionals feel about employee engagement. So the problem is here with the employees. Yeah, we call it employee engagement, but the actual problem is not here. It's not with the employees' engagement. It is here in the business systems. Yeah, so that's I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when start talking about employees. They're trying to find the quick fixes for the employees, for their for how they do their job, and so on and so forth, while actually they need to look for the fixes of their business systems. So think about this. Another idea that I want to highlight now is that employee engagement is contextual. What does it mean? It means that if we say that some employee is engaged, have a high level of employee engagement, it means that it makes sense only in certain context. So if we are talking with a let's say with a software developer, he or she might be really engaged with the R&D function and what she does for this, but has no idea and basically no intention to have emotional connection, for example, with customer service. And we can make the same conclusion for the customer service specialist. He or she might be very engaged about caring about the customers, providing the best customer service experience. But if we're going to start talking with this person in terms of marketing, we'll probably find out that their engagement is not that high. And if we're going to involve this person in some marketing ideas, some marketing initiatives, we'll find out that there is a problem with the engagement. So the main point here is that employee engagement is contextual. So first, it makes sense only in a certain context. And if we do right, we understand what this context is, and we know how to find right people for this context. We know how to train people for this context, and of course, we know how to engage people in this context that we're interested in. So I think it is enough about employee engagement itself. I think we all understand what we mean by employee engagement. We don't have a specific definition. There are some definitions, but they're infinitive loops. So you start defining employee engagement via the involvement. What is an involvement? You start defining by using such terms as attitude, motivation, and so on and so forth. But no good definition so far. But I think we all understand what we mean. We have some vague understanding of this concept. And to make this vague idea of employee engagement a little bit more specific, we need to define how we're going to measure it. Because when we answer the question about measurement, we're not just given a way to convert some intangible employee engagement into the numbers. We also define it better. So if we can find some good measurements, some good metrics for the employee engagement, or it's better to say, if you can find in your specific context, in your specific business, if you can find some good metrics for the employee engagement, then you will make it clear for your team what you mean by employee engagement. And that's the trick. So how can we measure employee engagement? To measure it, we need to quantify it in some way. And one way to do this, it's what basically Gallup does, is to create some kind of survey, use some questions, like, for example, those Q12 questions, and use those questions to compile the survey to get some numbers and get an idea about an engagement. The problem with those surveys, it's they're not objective. Why? Because we're interacting with the subject of measurement. In this case, the employees are the subject of measurement. And by asking them direct questions, we're interacting with them. And due to this, we're facing what is called in physics uncertainty principle. So that's the problem. And people hate surveys. And those surveys are often they have nothing to do with what really happens in business. And people are not stupid. They're not going to say, we hate working in this company. Yeah, they will give some positive answers, even if they think something different. So how to measure employee engagement if we don't do surveys? In this case, we have actually two options. One option is to just start observing and start making conclusions. It's quite long term. And another trick that you can do, that you can try on Friday afternoon, is to do a kind of experiment. Here is a setup for this experiment. So you can send to your team an email with a content that you can see on the screen right now. So it should be some task that is actually not hard to do. It doesn't require any special expertise, and it doesn't require any special preparation. But and actually, we're not really interested in the results, in the answers of this task. For this task, we're interested in the way that people will provide the answers. But those people who will receive this email, they don't know the purpose of this email, the real purpose of this email. So hopefully they will not make a conscious effort to in the way they want them to be. So how does it work? On the Friday afternoon, you send to your employees an email, something like this. So I assume that most of your employees can be the potential users of your service or your product. And it's reasonable that you ask them to share some improvement idea about this service or product. And I hope you do it. I hope you do it regularly. And this is just another attempt, another way to do this. And you do one thing. You add to the end of the email this line: please answer by email before Monday, for example, 11 a.m. And let's see what we'll have on Monday. On Monday, we'll have some interesting results. First of all, we'll be able to see the percentage of people who answered to this. It will be really interesting to see how many members of your team will answer to this question. Then we'll have another indicator, the percentage of what we can say, what we can classify as a good answer to this question. For example, if someone answered, have no idea how to improve our product, it's not a good answer. Or if you have some, general answer, like something, let's improve design, not enough details here, so it's not a good answer as well. So we'll be able to count the number of good answers as well. Now, to make it clear, these are not indicators of the engagement, and this they particularly explain. They show certain aspect of engagement, but it's not, let's say, they don't form 100% of what engagement is. But their values, especially relevant values, if we compare them to the historical data, if we compare them one project to another project, if we do compare it across the team, this might be really interesting in the context of employee engagement. So basically, a very rough definition that those of the employees who will give good answers within the specified time period are really engaged, because they found time to between Friday and Monday to pay attention to your email. They found time to think about your question, and they found time to write back an email. So there is certain level of engagement that we can create to those employees. We can with this simple experiment, we can get even more metrics, even more indicators. For example, it's interesting to add to the end of the email just one line, postscriptum, this is not obligatory. And when people see this, it's really interesting who will answer this. Yeah? Those who really engaged, or those who have too much free time. So that's the question. But it's experiment, and sometimes we can get some unexpected results, and we need to think how to interpret them. If you need more indicators, you can track the percentage of employees who suggested more than one improvement. And it's tricky again. You asked to share just one improvement. What does it mean? You ask your team to get focused and to select from the opinions, from the ideas that they have, the most important one. But someone has shared with you more than one ideas. What does it mean? I don't know. Probably it's an indicator of the kind of problem with discipline. Probably some person want to show that he or she is loyal, and want to participate, but the engagement is not only about being able to say something when you're asked. It's about being able to contribute, and it's tricky. Another indicator that can work for this, you can track the number of people who didn't answer within the specified time interval but responded later. It might be interesting to analyze who those persons are and how it's related to what they're doing. Or you can track the number of people who responded to you first shortly, that, okay, I got your email, I need some time to think, I'm not sure I will be able to do it before Monday. But later, you got some detailed response from them. So this is just an example of how we can replace the surveys, the classical tool to calculate the engagement that is really easy to game, that is not really objective, and sometimes it's perceived like sometimes the happiness of the employee is equal to employee engagement, but in many cases it's not. And with this quick experiment, we can do something. We can get some interesting indicators and get some insights for future improvement of their employee engagement. So again, these are not the indicators for the employee engagement, and most likely their absolute values won't make any sense. So you need to look for their relevant values compared to some historical data, compared over teams, compare one employee to another, compare the results of one employee to the results of another employee. So that's the idea that I think it's a good idea to pay your attention to. So how to measure employee engagement? I gave you an example of how we can establish some experiment, and this is one way to do to obtain required measurements. But there is a more standardized approach to measurement. In my book, I called it measurement prism, which basically includes 3 parts. One, we need to define what exactly we mean by employee engagement. So we need to break down the subject of measurement, the employee engagement, into smaller, tangible pieces. That's tricky, as I mentioned in the beginning, but we'll try to do this. Now, we need to define the purpose of measurement. Why do we want to measure it? It's important because by changing the purpose of measurement, we also change the tools we use for measurement. If we need to track the relevant change of employee engagement, we are free to choose any tool that will give us information about relevant change of employee engagement. to when we have to get one number every year. So probably we can, the choice of the tools will be different. Probably the goal is to get one number of employee engagement for the reporting purpose, for annual reports. Then we'll need to stick to, for example, surveys. I don't like surveys in this case, but for this purpose of measurement, it might be the only suitable tool. Now, when we define the purpose of measurement, we need to define the context of measurement. And one of the parts of the context of measurement is the definition of the stakeholders. So who we are dealing with. We have employees, we have our customers, we have management, we have more stakeholders. So the idea of engagement will be in the relationship between all these stakeholders, probably mostly between the employee and the customer, if we're talking about, let's say, line level employees, and between different groups of employees, or between employee and some projects. So different stakeholders will give us different ideas about how to break down the subject of measurement. So the problems with the definition of employee engagement, there is no agreement about it. So if you define employee engagement in this way, it doesn't mean that in different companies it's defined in the same way. With the purpose of measurement, normally companies say, okay, we want to improve it, obviously. And for the definition of the context is always different. So what we can do about this, we can talk a lot about what employee engagement is, but sometimes it makes sense just to start with some indicators and to see how it works. And I will share with you some indicators. For the purpose of measurement, it's not just about improving the employee engagement, because we need to understand how the cause and effect relationship between the engagement, the measurement of management efforts, and probably some best practices that employees are using. So probably the more interesting goal is to learn from those who have high engagement level, and try to understand how to make sure that other members of the team can do better. So probably that's the purpose. Finally, the context. You can define the context if you, for example, say, okay, we are measuring the employee engagement for the people from the client service, and that's one thing. If you say, okay, we're measuring employee engagement from the people who are doing our internal business process, it's a different thing. So do these 3 steps to narrow down your choice of metrics, choice of tools, and choice of the results. As for the metrics for the employee engagement on our website, if you scroll down, you will see some links, and one of these links is a link to employee engagement scorecard. This is one the one that you can see on the screen. So you can open it. It's created in BC Designer Online, our cloud-based software for scorecards and KPIs. And there are some indicators that you can basically use. You can save a copy of this scorecard to your account, and you can start using it for your own measurement. You can start using it as a template for your own employee engagement data. And these indicators are based on Q12 questions from Gallup. So that's an easy way if you don't want to spend a lot of time defining what employee engagement is in your company. That's a good starting point. And if you want to learn more about how to measure things, how to do it formally, how to establish experiments, how to use this measurement prism, what other things you can do better in this case, I do recommend for you my book, Step Kpi System. Just Google for it or search for it on Amazon to find a copy and get your copy. It's really useful for the purpose of measurement. Yeah, and actually, the book also includes some template some brainstorming template that you can use to actually think about the metrics that you need to measure whatever. Probably in this case it will be employee engagement. Okay. So the promised 5 ways to quickly improve employee engagement. If we review the Q12 questions and other sources, basically we can narrow down the list of the factors of employee engagement to this most critical, most important. So employees are engaged when they know current situation and they know what to do to change it. They know their priorities, what is urgent and what is important. There is a difference. They know how it fits into the big picture. They know how what they do fits into the big picture. Their opinion is taken into account, and they have a visual picture of what's happening. So, key factors, one of them. I'm going to share with you 5 ideas about how you can address all these key factors. So, they know current situation and what to do to change it. One way to explain this is to find metrics, what we call bottleneck metrics. So in your process, in your business, you can measure many things, but first thing that it makes sense to measure is what is limiting you, what is limiting your business systems. So if you find this metric, if you share it with your employees, then they will probably understand what is the main challenge of the situation that you're facing right now, and respectively how to address it, because you will need to find leading and lagging metric. While lagging metric will help you to validate the result, the leading one will help your team to understand how this situation can be changed. They know their priorities, what is urgent and what is important. In this case, the urgent situations will be measured by operational metrics. And they for sure make sense. It makes sense to measure them, but what it also makes sense to measure is the other metrics that we can classify as important metrics. The metrics, what we call is a change metric. So the metrics that you're using to control your operational the operations in your business system are important, and they give you some idea about how your system is running. But we're also interested in understanding how to change the current situation, how we can do better, what we can change to avoid the situation that we're facing right now, what we can do to disrupt this business. So that's a change metric. So the change metric is important, and if you can find it, if you can present it to your employees, you will make it much more clear for them what is important for a business and how they should choose their priorities. Now, they know how it fits into the big picture. In this case, one thing that I would recommend to do is to use funnel metrics. What does it mean? A classical funnel, we have leads on the top. The leads are converted into qualified leads, and qualified leads are converted into sales, and sales are converted into the loyal customers. So that's a funnel. And on each level, we see how the previous level is contributing to the next one. So if you, let's say, if you're setting some tasks to some person who is not really, let's say, engaged because he or she does not understand why he or she is getting a lot of searching for new leads, by showing this funnel, you could give this person a sense of what's happening. You can explain it this way, that you are getting these leads not just to get some leads, but to make sure that your colleagues have enough leads, enough qualified leads to work with them further. So that's the idea. You can build funnel for almost any business challenge, and just build it to explain to a team how things depend each on another. Now, their opinion is taken into account. Let's say there are different ways to do this, how to show to your employee that their opinion is taken into account. And one way is to what I call is to practice KPI freedom. So what does it mean? You allow your members of your team to choose metrics on their own. Doesn't mean that they will choose it and use some stupid metrics. You are here to help them. There should be some facilitator who will ask correct questions, who will direct them to the probably right answers. But the idea is that they find metrics themselves. And that's actually the hard way to I mean the opposite to the soft way. Soft way is like you pretend that you're listening to your people, you pretend that the opinion is you're getting a lot of feedback forms, you're doing such things. But by doing this exercise, by doing KPI freedom exercise, you actually put them into the position when they have to participate. And when they do this, they know that there are no doubt that their opinion was taken into account, because what they have created, the KPIs that they have created, are actually now implemented into the performance measurement system. So that's the idea. And the last factor is that they have a visual picture. So having a visual picture, you can do it in different ways. Again, if you do the scorecard in some software, for sure you will have many tools to prepare a visual picture. Like what you see right now with the dashboard from BC Designer Online, from some example. And actually that's one way to show the visual picture. It's much more attractive than showing some data tables. Or another way to do this, to show the visual picture, is to use a strategy map. Because with a strategy map, and this is one design created in BC Designer, with a strategy map you show not only just the indicators, but you show the business context for them. You show how the goals are connected each to another, and you show the cause and effect relationship between the goals. You can use strategic themes. And if you're interested in if you're interested in what are the visual means you can use, I do recommend for you to visit the examples webpage on our website, where you can actually find more examples, and I hope those examples will work as an inspiration for you. Again, you can get more ideas from the 10-step KPI system book. And these are the 5 that I do recommend for you to try. So 1, find the metric that is limiting your system, bottleneck metric. 2, find the metric that will show to employees how to do things differently, not how to repeat doing every day what they were doing before, but how to change the situation, 100%. For example, if we are talking about package delivery service, the operational metrics might be the metrics about delivery efficiency, something related to that, and the change metric might be the percent of deliveries, of successful deliveries by drones. Yeah. So probably officially you're not allowed to deliver by drones, but probably you can just put these metrics on your dashboard to make sure that people know that you have this idea on your horizon, and you know that someday you will do this, and that's motivating. That's what engaging people. Number 3, to show how people contribute to the overall progress, show them the funnel metrics. If you don't have a classical funnel, there is probably a process map relevant for your business challenge, for a business context, that makes sense. KPI freedom. When you're not just trying to get you're not just trying to ask your employees to fill another feedback form. You're actually giving them a practical tool that they will use, and that give a guarantee to them that their opinion will be counted, that it will be implemented in the performance measurement system. And finally, visualize the performance on the dashboards, on the strategy maps, probably on the paper if it's work better in your company, or probably what's the best case in many situations. It's the best choice is to combine different methods. Okay, moving ahead. So now let's talk about the training that we'll be doing in Lisbon and Portugal in November 2017. There will now be like classical seats, low-cost seats. So we're doing only the VIP part, and we're expecting that HRs and the CEOs that will come there, they have some general idea about the employee engagement. They already tried something, and probably they did something good, probably they failed. So we'll be focusing on a very specific question related to employee engagement. We'll talk about how to measure it, and we'll talk about how to improve it. So what are the details of this training? So you can review them on website. In the links section, you'll find the respective links to this event. And basically, this training will be divided into the 4 blocks. Block number 1, we'll talk a little bit about employee engagement, what it is, why it's important, how can we quantify, how can we measure it. We will discuss some more examples, some more insights. In the block 2, we'll take a very specific case. We'll take a case related to HR, where HR is doing some training, is controlling some training in the company, and we'll show how this, using this example, how to achieve better employee engagement, how to make it in a measurable way. So we're going to talk using this example about how to switch your, shift your understanding of training, of measuring training efficiency to measuring training effectiveness, measuring outcomes that are important for a business. Finally, block 3, we'll talk about the drivers of employee engagement. We'll talk about what is influencing the employee engagement in any company and what you can do to change to improve employee engagement. Block 4, we'll discuss 5 more actionable ideas that you will be able to implement quickly. I'm not interested in explaining you a lot about of theory. I want you to find some. I want you to find some ideas, few like 3 ideas that you believe will work for your business and that you'll be implementing when you will be back in your office. So we'll try to limit the theory here, and we'll focus more on practice. So you will get back to your office with few practical ideas related to employee engagement that I hope you will implement right away, so that you will be able to see some tangible improvements very soon. So that's the content of the training that we'll be doing in Lisbon. And right now, or if you will visit the training page, we have some prices, we have some participation options, and I will give a quick overview of what we have there. So first of all, there are 3 participation options. One that we call on the fly, when you actually don't participate in the live event in Lisbon, because, well, many of us are very busy people, and you will have 3 benefits. You will have access to the recordings, to the audio recordings of the training. You will have access to the pre-event webinars, and you will have a hard copy of the 10-step KPI system book. So basically, we'll have this audio recordings and hard copy of this book. The participants of the VIP and premium section are expected to attend a live event in Portugal. And it includes participation 1-day event training, and it also includes some classical coffee breaks, lunch, and of course networking during this. The premium participation option additionally includes 2 hours of post-event private consultations. So obviously during the event you will have some ideas that you will probably want to discuss privately, and we can arrange meetings the next day after the training. It will be 17th November, Friday, so we can arrange meeting the next day, or we can also arrange some Skype call later. So during the training, there are certain limitations. Obviously, the first format on the fly, there is no technical limitation of for this, so the number of seats there is unlimited. But the total limit for the number of participants is, we will try to keep it very small. So it will be about 10 persons maximum. So hopefully it will not be too much. And we will assign 8 VIP seats. So VIP participation options, and just 2 premium participation options, because my time will be limited on the next day, on the next Friday. So basically I will be able to meet only with 2 clients the next day. So that's what we have on our website. You can learn more details there. And the super early bird price that we promoted before, this super early bird price will be available just before 25th of July. So right now on the website you can see normal early bird prices, which end 15th of August. But just before 25th of July, there is a super early bird price that you can see on your screen right now. And if you want to sign up for the training in Lisbon using these super early bird prices, use the links that you have on the air page. And one important note, on this page that you're using to watch this webinar, the BC Designer on Air, you have like time before 25th of July. Then the early bird price will be removed and will not be repeated. So make sure you have time to do this. Now we have some time to review the challenges that you sent to me when signing up for this webinar. And before doing this, let me check if we have some questions. Normally, people formulate their questions, their challenges when sign up for the webinar, so I don't expect too many questions. So, okay, good. No questions so far. So I will review the questions that you have asked me before the webinar. The challenge was apathy and motivation, and I think that one of the most important ideas about apathy and motivation that they are not that they are the results, and what we are interested in is to find the reasons. So think about this apathy and motivation and the results of some factors. So one thing that you can obviously do is do a cause and effect analysis to replace these results with the reasons. Probably if you review the Q12 questions mentioned before, you will find that some of them resonate with what you have in your company. That's the starting point for this analysis. And again, what I mentioned in the beginning, that when you'll be doing so, look for the problems in the business systems, not in people. That's the key idea about employee engagement. Another challenge, getting buy-in. That's a really general challenge, but I think that many of the participants wanted to ask similar questions. So a good idea in this case would be to use these three approaches. One, if you see that there is a problem with buy-in, with motivation to do something, make sure that when you assign some tasks to an employee, there is at least one lead-in and one login metric for it. Why it's important? Because in this way, you are making it very specific, very clear what you want the employee to do, lead-in metric, and what results you expect from the employee login metric. If you don't understand yet what the lead-in and login metric should be, play the KPI freedom game that we discussed before. Make sure that you involve employee into this. Ask the questions. How are we going to do this? How do you see it? What do you think is the main factor? How can we test it? How can we find out that it will work? And if it will work, what we'll see in the results? So questions like this help. Two, people like visual things. So use show the big picture in some way. And what is more important, that you can show that how the local things, local changes, these vary at small tasks, correlates with the strategic indicators. So it can be the funnel metric that we discussed before. It can be something on the strategy map, something like this. And C, number 3, make sure that the metrics are defined not by you, at least not directly by you, they are not mandated by you, but they are defined by the employees, by those who will do the job, by those whose buy-in you are looking for. Another challenge, it's interesting, how to engage through the change, how to engage through change. So something is changing, and how to make sure that people stayed engaged, if I understood this question correctly. Basically, the main idea here that you can never know if your people are engaged, if your employees are engaged or not, until you get to the crisis. Yeah, we can do a lot of experiments, we can do a lot of find a lot of metrics, Q12 from Gallup or whatever, but it will be everything in theory. The real proof of engagement, of loyalty of your people, will be when the crisis will come. So that's one idea. And actually, I believe that's the benefit of the crisis. Don't expect it like you had some problems with engagement, and that's why the crisis broke everything. No, on the contrary, the crisis showed you where the problems are. And one way to make sure that your team will survive during the crisis, during the change, is to understand who is initiating this change. If you're initiating this change, then you have a lot of problems. You need to get a buy-in from your employees. You need to get a buy-in. You need to have some sponsorship from your boss, from company owners. But if the employees who's initiating the change, then you're in a winning position. How to make sure that employees initiating the change? Don't do direct orders. Instead, start asking questions that will lead to what is needed, that will lead employee to right answers, probably to some new answers that you didn't know before. And this will solve a lot of issues, including the issue with employee engagement. Another challenge, how to measure various initiatives to improve employee engagement. So employee engagement, we have different ideas, they're overlapping, overlapping in time in the business context, and how to manage with this. First of all, I would suggest you to limit the number of metrics that you're using. So with Gallup, you have like 12 factors. If you want to make it a little bit more measurable, more controllable, make sure you're dealing with 1 or 2 factors, and respectively you have 1 or 2 leading and lagging metrics. Second, do what in physics they call the superposition principle. So the initiatives might be overlapping and might be interfering one with another, but you test them separately. When you test them, you assume that there is no such influence between these initiatives. And when you do this, they become a little bit more measurable. And another thing is that when we're trying to measure something afterwards, we're always in a bad position. Something has happened, and we need to find the way to measure it in some ways. It's difficult. So how to be in a better position? A better position would be to make your systems measurable by design. In other words, you have to think about the measurement before you or during the creation of the initiatives. So when you think about the initiatives that you're going to implement, you think about how you're going to measure it. You implement the measurement part into this initiative, into these changes, and that's help. So thank you for your participation. We have reviewed all the questions that I wanted to review today. Let me check if we have any more questions coming. Good, everything is answered. And let me check questions on the main page. Okay, so no questions so far. I thank you for your attention. And should you have any questions, as always, feel free to contact us via the contact form on bcdesigner.com. And I hope to see you among the participants in the webinar, in the VIP training event that we'll be doing in November in Lisbon, in Portugal. Thank you for your attention, and goodbye.